see a movie this weekend.
Uh-huh.
And one of our favorite parts is getting there early, and you get to see all the trailers and everything. And then by the time you get out of the movie, you want to talk about everything that you want to see next. Like, I love looking forward to those movies, right? And then I forget, what did we actually come here to watch? Oh, what movie are we here to see? Because I still want to go see those movies now.
I'm a little afraid that she's trying to tell me that bumper video was so long that she doesn't know what we're supposed to be talking about up here.
No, I think I got this.
Okay.
I just thought we'd have some conversations, hang out a little bit.
Hang out. Y'all want to hang out with us today?
Morning.
You might notice that Pastor Chris isn't up here hanging out, his loss.
Yeah, true story.
But he is in Lebanon. So he left last week. Carla drove him to the airport. I'm guessing he made it to the airport? No, he did. I got a text message from him this morning, and he said that he was visiting a group. Now, I say this morning, let me be real clear. I don't know what hour it is because there's like an 8-hour difference, and he texts me at random times when I'm clearly asleep. So at some point in the last 24 hours, he texted me and said that he was with a group of Syrian refugee kids, that there were like 30 families that lived in one house.
Wild.
And that he had an opportunity to hang out with the kids. He's there with a group of clergy that are looking at opening a school. On behalf of the North Texas Conference, which is the conference that we're in. So he's there kind of scoping out where that could happen and what that looks like. You know a little bit about what he's doing, right?
Yeah. So the Methodist Church, we're across the world, and one of the things we're trying to do here in North Texas Annual Conference is that we have groups of clergy that are going over and kind of scouting out what it's like to be in ministry with some of the refugees coming from Syria and finding sanctuary in Lebanon, a country that's hosting them, that's close by. And we're sending teams over to kind of check it out, see what we could do. How can we be part of bringing hope and justice to a different part of the world that really needs it? And so Chris is on part of that trip, and there'll be different trips going out. And one of our other clergy brothers, he's posted tons of pictures on his Twitter feed, and so it's been really amazing to see. Chris is not a picture person, so I don't get anything but the random story or antidote from him either, but our buddy Wes has posted great pictures that are telling amazing stories. One of them that's really hit me, I was kind of sharing it with a group of friends during a halftime football game party last night, and just kind of showing those pictures, and they are checking out that there's, 110,000 people living in 1 square kilometer. And part of that is a lot of orphans that have lost their parents, and so they're looking at building a school, partnering with an orphanage. And so a lot of these pictures have been of children and these families. And they've brought Connect 4. They're teaching the kids how to play Connect 4, how to build puzzles. But what I love out of all of these pictures, in the midst of what these families, these children have gone through, you can see joy on these children's faces as they're playing games, as they're eating snacks, as they are sitting and sharing a table and building relationships with them. These, my clergy brother and sisters, these young children between babies to high schoolers are just lighting up that frame and that picture with joy. And that's amazing. What they have been through, you can see the joy that is within them. I give thanks to that we're kind of looking at how can we continue to bring hope and justice to a group of people that have gone through so much in their lives in the last couple years.
You know, we have been talking about this Vivid sermon series, this opportunity where you guys have joined us. Sarah's preached, I've preached, Chris has preached, and talking about who we are as a church and what our mission is together. And I think the bottom line for all of us came down to it's the people. It's how we're living out our call in God's life. So today we wanted to invite you guys to be a part of the sermon with us, to be a part of this study with us. We thought if we're going to close all of this out, it'd be a unique and good opportunity for you to just kind of join the conversation. So if you've got a Bible with you, pull it out. If you don't, the verse is in your bulletin. If you are a cell phone Bible reader, you can get that out. We won't judge.
As Jennifer and I were hanging out this week, even just sitting up here and just drinking happy hour limeades that were beautifully gifted to us this week. And
I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
I usually don't know either. And then we're just having conversations and sharing stories and seeing what scriptures kind of came to us. And this Jeremiah text is one that just spoke out to me. And what I love in my Bible, Jeremiah chapter 20, it starts with the words, this section. It may not say this in your Bible, but it says total despair.
That
All right.
sounds exciting,
What
right?
is the word of God today from the prophet Jeremiah? Lord, you enticed me, and I was taken in. You were too strong for me, and you prevailed. Now I am laughed at all the time. Everyone mocks me. Every time I open my mouth, I cry out and say, violence and destruction. The Lord's word has brought me nothing but insult and injury constantly. I thought, I'll forget him. I'll no longer speak his name. But there's an intense fire in my heart, trapped in my bones, and I'm drained, trying to contain it. I'm unable to do it.
Somewhere around verse 8 it says, I cry out violence and destruction. All you got to do is turn on the news, right? Like there's your violence and destruction coming out. But there's something comforting to know that hundreds of years ago, that was the case.
Yeah.
This isn't new. This isn't something we haven't faced before. That there's always been a piece of hard times.
Yeah. It's true, and it still continues today. As we look at these words, it shows that God is with them through it all. God is still pouring within them, around them, before them, behind them, in the midst of this. A fire within their bones that they cannot contain. Have you ever been drained trying to contain that fire within your bones?
Yeah, I was having a conversation. Actually, our whole discipleship team meets on Mondays, and we have a little devotion at the beginning. A couple of weeks ago, Craig gave the devotion. I didn't tell you I was going to talk about you. I'm sorry. So he said that he's in seminary. He was sitting in class. He's in class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And he said, I wasn't paying attention and almost falling asleep. Don't do that.
It happens in seminary.
And so he said, but all of a sudden, I heard the professor say, God runs with scissors. He woke up to that. God runs with scissors. Now, as the children's person in the church, I want to say, no, nobody runs with scissors. That's not a thing. But as we started talking about what that meant, one of the things we talked about was that sometimes it's just the hard choice to choose to follow God. I mean, it's easy to sit here while we're all together in the church, in the safety of our four walls, and say, yeah, I love God. I've got a relationship with God. I'm going to follow God. But when you get out of the walls, it starts to get a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Because it's not always the popular thing. I mean, I have told y'all before, I was super young when I decided that I wanted to be a preacher. I was 12. Now, I decided that at church camp. That's a totally safe place to talk about how much you love God. Everybody's all in with you. And then I walked home, and I got asked in class by a teacher, so what do you want to be? And I thought, ooh, like here's a whole room full of people that aren't part of my church. Do I really want to say out loud, like, I'm going to be a preacher? And I wish it got easier as I got older, but I don't know that it did. I don't know that relationships are any easier when you say, I'm going to choose to follow God, even if that's not the popular choice. Even if it makes you nervous, or even if it makes somebody else nervous. I left the church for a while after I started working in the church because I felt like I wasn't doing the popular thing. If I wanted to get married and have kids, if I wanted a life that I thought I wanted to have, then I was going to have to step away from being here all the time. And several years into a corporate job later, I clearly made it right back here. There's something about that verse that sticks to me. We can run, we can say God isn't there, but there is something deep down that drove me back.
In your bones.
In my bones. I have small children, and it's Halloween. That makes me a little nervous to say in my bones, skeletons and all. But yeah, I mean, there was something really deep and buried that said, this is where you're supposed to be. And I'll be honest with you, coming back was scary. But at the same time, when I finally just gave in, when I finally said, you know what, God, you're right, I'm right here, it was the greatest moment for me. And I think it's important. I mean, really, what is God calling you to do deep, deep down?
Well,
What does God want for you?
and your willingness to acknowledge that fire in your bones not only gives you peace and changes your life, it's changed us and our congregation and all those that we get to share ministry with you. So thank you for saying yes. Coming back.
What about you?
As I was reading this week, it hit me. Same kind of thing. I had this past summer, I took an extended kind of Sabbath, a trip, a renewal of sorts that I kind of needed after several years of good, hard ministry. And I started with a trip by myself. I am an only child, and I really enjoy traveling alone for a brief period of time. I'll eventually make friends. And so I started with a 10-day trip up to a retreat, a pilgrimage up to the small island in Scotland, way up there. The ones like where you see in like Outlander and different movies like that, like where they film Game of Thrones and those beautiful places. So I took a giant trek up there by myself. But I knew I wouldn't be traveling alone. I didn't know anyone, but I would have companions along the ride with me. I didn't know who they were or what they would bring into my life or what I had to offer in. But I had this constant struggle within. I guess it could be like a fire in my bones. Part of me wanted to resist it and deny it and say, God, I just want to be alone. I want to be selfish, and I don't want to have to be in someone else's stuff. In ministry, that happens, and we can feel like we can get drained sometimes. But we also get blessed by being part of people's lives. But this was a week where I was like, I'm just going to be selfish, and I'm just here for me. I'm just going to rest. I'm going to be chasing cows and sheep, and I'm just going to be here with me.
I'm sorry, did you say chasing cows was rest?
Oh, my gosh, it's so much fun.
Oh, y'all.
We live in Argyle. We'll find some later. All right, so I'm up there, but every step of the way, as soon as I board a plane in DFW, I met a woman that was sitting next to me that was also traveling by herself and just needed a companion to feel comfortable about this journey she was on, to arriving in the train station in Glasgow to a woman that was on a last-minute trip to try to see some distant family, and she's never been to Scotland, never ridden a train, and she is nervous about being away from her baby for the first time, and trying to give her comfort about how to get on a train and how to find the right platform, which those kind of things can kind of shake you up when you're in a different country. And so I just kind of nurtured her, show her how to buy coffee and find out what coins to use, and allowed myself to be in her space and her anxiety and give her peace in the midst of that. To the trains when I get all the way up, and now we're taking boats beyond island and island, and I see a whole bunch of nervous travelers that are going to the same place as me and have never been and have no idea which boat to get on, to which boat to get on, to which bus, to which boat. It is a journey, friends. And I see them, and they're nervous. And one of them, his name is Malcolm, and he's from the south of England. And he was on a journey for himself. He was going to the same place as me. We ended up staying in the same kind of camp. And I could tell he was heavy going into this. He wasn't a pastor. He was just a normal guy. He was a retired teacher trying to figure out what's next and how to live into what God has for him. And he was just going on this journey to ask a lot of questions. And I'm like, I do not want to be helping someone through while I just need to be refilled. I just want to be me. But Malcolm really needs a lot of love right now. I can see it in him. And so I spent 8 days with Malcolm and many others. And that first day, I can look around the boats that we're all traveling on, and I see heaviness. I see body language. And I gave joy by the last time we were leaving, when we got back on those boats to head back, wherever we were going. Everyone was full of life and joy. Their bodies were open. They were lighter. Their faces were just lit up, like those children in the pictures I've seen in Lebanon. And Malcolm told me, he pulled me aside one day, and he said, that very first day when I sat by him on the boat, and the very first worship service we had when we got to the island, I saw him, and I remember it. We all have that moment where it's like, I can choose to go and be in this space with someone, or I can choose to say no and do my thing. And I felt God calling me to go and be next to Malcolm. And we didn't talk about anything deep in that moment, but he said me sitting with him in the midst of that in those first couple of days helped him open himself up, give him peace, and really heal over that week. And I got to see him leave light, and we continued to email back and forth and be friends across the world. And I look back, and I didn't realize what was happening, but me trying to go and say, I'm not going to be a pastor on this trip. I do not want to be Pastor Sarah. I just want to be Sarah. No one asked me what I do for a living. I just want to be me. I just want to be goofy. I want to be quiet. I want to be spontaneous. And some days I just want to sit and read and chase some cows, even if I'm doing it by myself. And God used everything who I am, everything within my bones. I said yes to the fire within. And it was cool that as Sarah, I was still part of hope and peace and reconciliation in other people's lives because we spent time together, we spent vulnerability, and I chose to say yes to it. And I remember that active decision. I could try to deny it like Jeremiah says, but I recognized that fire within that was pulling me to be present with others. And I was healed in the midst of that and came back full of life and excited to be back in ministry. Needed it. They poured into me in the same way.
You know, when we talk about Vivid, we've talked a lot about our individual journeys. What is your relationship with God? But I think to wrap this up, we've really got to have a conversation about what our relationship with God is in the church. And so as Sarah and I were sitting here talking about all of these topics, one of the things that came to mind was Revelation. Now, that's the book that you typically think of as the apocalypse, right? The end of times, all the things, right?
That's what I was taught.
Yeah. But today, I want to take a look at it a little bit differently. I want you to take a look at it from the perspective of this was an opportunity to wake up the church. So if you look through here, you'll see several times where it's actually speaking directly to churches. And not churches that were terrible and not churches that were great, churches that were just sitting here, being the church. So we're going to read in Revelation chapter 3, verse 14. Write this to the angel of the church in Laodicea. These are the words of the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the ruler of God's creation. I know your works. You are neither cold nor hot. I wish that you were either cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth. After all, you say, I'm rich and I've grown wealthy and I don't need a thing. You don't realize that you are miserable, pathetic, poor, blind, and naked. My advice is that you buy gold from me that has been purified by fire, so that you may be rich, and white clothing to wear so that in your nakedness you won't be shamefully exposed, and ointment to put on your eyes so that you may see. I correct and discipline those whom I love. So be earnest and change your hearts and lives. Look, I'm standing at the door and knocking. If any hear my voice and open the door, I will come in to be with them, and will have dinner with them, and they will have dinner with me. As for those who emerge victorious, I will allow them to sit with me on my throne, just as I emerged victorious and sat down with my Father on his throne. You know, right there in verse 15, it says, you're neither cold or hot, and I wish you'd be one or the other. I wish the church would stop being so lukewarm. Come on now, God runs with scissors. There's something to this, right?
Yeah.
I was talking to Carla this week. For those of you who don't know, Carla is our middle school youth coordinator. And she and I sat down, and several months ago when we sat down, she had said, you know, I came to the church, I'm the youth director, and I'm the youth director because I was here. Like, I'm happy to do it. It's awesome. The door opened, I stepped in, but long term, I don't really know what it is that I want to do. I'm just here because it was here. In our conversation this week, Carla said, you know, I need to stop that. She said, I am not just here because I'm here. I'm here because God called me to be here. And God is equipping me to do ministry here.
Awesome.
And I thought, how easy is it? How easy is it to think we're just here doing what we do because the door opened and we were the ones standing there? But really, when that door opens and we choose to walk through it, aren't we really saying, all right, God, I hear you. I'm here doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm going to trust that you're going to give me what I need to live in your world. It's hard, right? It's hard to say God's equipping me to do something in his kingdom, because then we got to own it. We can't be lukewarm in the middle about it. Then we've got to say, all right, God, I'm here, and if I mess it up, it's on us. But there's so much greater joy in the church when you look out at a crowd of people and realize that everyone's trying their best to do great things with what God's giving them.
I've seen it here in our ministry here, and the ministry you guys are part of. Like, wow, like there is a fire that's burning within the bones of this church, the bones of this body of Christ, and it's getting hot, and I mean in a good way. It's heating up. I love it. If I was to describe it as an emoji, it'd be that little salsa dancer, right? It's like, she is dancing some good music.
We're chasing cows and describing things with emojis. Y'all, this is a whole new brand.
This is how I think. So I love it, though. I can't stop but see it. Maybe because a lot of the things I do is helping people grow in that ministry and engage and connect. And so I am constantly surrounded by these stories. One of these stories that popped in my mind this morning to think about people who cannot help but be in ministry. I was thinking about Rachel LeMay, if you know her. If you haven't, if you ever see food in our church, besides donut holes, there's a good chance she's part of it, because you cannot help. She cannot help but cook food and bring it to you. If she finds out there's something going on at this church, she wants to make the food. That is her ministry. Hospitality, food, bringing people around tables is what she does. She is always around. At starting point in our ministries, I'll say, hey, can we prepare like some snacks for a few people? And she'll bring enough for 50. And few means 50. I love that she thinks beyond numbers. That's what she does. When I went out of town on mission trip with the high schoolers this summer, she knows my husband. She knows him well. He's not in here, right? All right, we can talk about this. So he doesn't not cook. He will eat out. And so for the 9 days we were gone, she's like, Gary doesn't need to eat out. He needs a good home meal. She made him a giant thing, and it was not just a giant plate of food he could eat off of. It was something he looked forward to eating every night while I was gone, and it allowed me to have some peace that he was going to be okay and not eat McDonald's or Chick-fil-A every night. That was something you cannot help her. She is going to be in the middle of any kind of hospitality and food ministry. So friends, if you hear Rachel LeMay is going to be cooking at one of our events, get excited, because it is creative and amazing. Oh.
Okay, now I'm starving. See?
Sorry, we were talking about food earlier in the table.
Food in the table. I mean, I think about in our church, there was a group that started Up Ministry. So you've heard us talk about Up Ministry and what that is. And for those of you who haven't, that's an opportunity to serve children in our community that may not have someone to partner with them, whether that be uniforms or food all summer long or camp or backpacks, all sorts of opportunities and ways that we can come alongside families in our communities that may be without. And in talking to them about their ministry, they said, I've come up with all sorts of reasons to stop. I've come up against staff being in my way. We own it. We get in the way. I've come up against money being a problem. I've come up against getting kids to the church. But there is something about this ministry that just won't let me stop.
Can't contain it.
And here's the thing about it. Yeah, that affects them. Yes, they followed that call deep down. But how many of you have that affected? How many of you have been a part of something that Up Ministry has done? It's amazing when we listen to the call that's deep within us, the lives and the number of lives that we will continue to transform.
I've seen it another time. I can think of at least 2 people in our church that have fallen in, and suddenly they're like, Pastor Sarah, I find myself in this situation again where someone I love is going through something hard. Or I find myself in a situation again where I didn't realize how much I love this group of people, and I don't know what to do with it. And we start having conversations, and they realize Have you ever thought that it might be God calling you to be in relationship with people, to be present and be a person of peace in that life of theirs during this time? And then she'll come back into my office and be like, Pastor Sarah, something else happened to someone I love, and I'm in that situation again. I'm like, have you ever thought that God might be calling you to grow in the gifts to know how to care for people when they're in that situation? And she's like, all right, so what do I need for right now? Okay. So this happens again. Pastor Sarah, something happened again to someone I love. All right, let's have a conversation, because you are constantly being pulled into amazing moments where you can offer hope and peace to people's lives. How do we help you grow and know that this is God calling you to say yes to this fire that is burning within, and to be a person of peace that is bringing hope and justice and reconciliation to the people in your life and the people that are not yet in your life? How can you say yes to that? It's the same thing I had to learn this summer. How can I deny to be present in people's lives? And this is happening all around, where people are finding what is happening. And as community, we help each other recognize what that fire is within and help them say yes. This is what we do together.
You know, verse 20 says, "Look, I'm standing at the door and knocking. If any hear my voice and open the door, I will come in to be with them and will have dinner with them, and they will have dinner with me."
Ooh, Jesus is knocking at that door.
That's a little bit much for me. No, I think we now stand here as a church listening to Jesus knock at our door. We come today on World Communion Sunday, an opportunity to remember that we're not the only ones coming to this table, and that this table isn't reserved for Argyle United Methodist Church. This table is reserved for all those that wish to come together to eat with God.
Absolutely. As we think about what does it mean we all kind of have that fire within. We all have the Spirit of God within us. We believe this as Methodists and as children of God. What does it look like to say yes to that? And when we open the door, when Christ is knocking, and we open the door and invite him to the table to eat with us, that's inviting a relationship with Christ. That's inviting intimacy. When you come down and you sit at a table with someone and you are eating together, you are sharing together, as I learned this summer in Scotland, you are just being present with one another, helping each other see that fire within. That's what Christ does for us, is to help us see the fire within us and how we can be part of hope and reconciliation. And so we're called to light it up. This table is that invitation to bring us here together and to have that moment with Christ so that he can kindle within us, so that it is so hot we can't help but be kind of a spark to be salt and light in other people's lives. And so we're coming together, not for our table, but a table for all the world, so that all the world will know this great hope that is for us.
Communion's my very favorite Sunday. Many of you have heard me say that. It's the one time when no matter what happened in your week, no matter who you are, how old you are, what's happening in your life right this second, we come together. We come together as equals to rejoice in our time with God and to be with each other.
Amen.
So will you pray with me today? Gracious and loving God, we give thanks for this table, for the opportunity to come together, to find what's deep in our bones, to live out what you're calling us to do, to know that we're not alone, and to know that you're knocking on our door. In your name we pray, amen.
Well, I took the lunches on the last Wednesday, and when my girls and I walked in with our bins of lunches, the lady ran to me and she said, "Oh, thank you so much." She said, "You have no idea how much the kids look forward to this every Wednesday." And so that right there said we were doing what we needed to do. Well, I guess starting this summer into our second week, we didn't have any kids show up. And we couldn't understand why. And when we went inside the rec center, we realized, which is a good thing, they're providing a summer camp for the kids that provided a hot lunch. So it was good that the children, the children's needs were being met, but yet we had all, our resources, we had donations and volunteers set up, and it just kind of left us with, okay, where are we going to, what are we going to do next?
We kind of went into a holding pattern for a little while and didn't know what we were going to do. So we got our heads together, and I guess we didn't know. I think for a little while we almost wanted to just find a good place for our donations and be done with it. But thankfully we came up with a good solution, which was taking some of the non-perishable donations that we had received, and then also putting a list together of other items that we could make a snack pack. I guess that's what you would call it, or a pantry pack for kids to bring home with them. And we continued that weekly. So every Wednesday we got together and we put these packs together. We brought them to the rec center, and we worked with the staff at the rec center to hand them out and pass them out to the campers at the end of every Wednesday.
And we didn't have any kids show up, and then after hearing the rec center volunteer, how she was so thankful for the lunches, and I just right then told my girls, this is where he wanted us this summer. Is we made a bigger impact. I think we reached more kids.
Oh, we did. Our numbers increased from maybe handing out 10 lunches to handing out 30 to 35,
40. We did
40 at the end of the summer, 40 snack packs.
Mm-hmm.
We do live in a privileged community, and the reason I got involved, one of the reasons I got involved initially was, our kids they grow up in this environment that, they never get to see what else is out there, and I think it is a good opportunity, specifically this ministry, to get kids involved and to see what else is out there, to see that not every child grows up in the same circumstances that they do. And I think that's priceless for our kids.
I just wanted to thank them for taking an opportunity that wasn't an opportunity to finish a mission and say, okay, well, that need's not being met, but look at what could be. What is a way that we can actually expand our mission and ministry? And they went into that community and asked, what more do our kids need? Well, they actually don't just need a warm meal on that one day. They need to take that home. How can we continue to be the extension of Christ, to be an extension of ministry in that time? And they were able to make that happen. God's Spirit is within every single one of us, calling us to see how we can be partnering with God for that. In fact, at Argyle Methodist, this is our mission statement: to grow as disciples, working with God. This is how we're called to work with God. It's not work, it's fun. What did we say about imagination? It's fun. We get to dream, and from that, the rest of our mission statement, to transform the world one life at a time. The dreams we have, they come from God's Spirit. Each one of us are filled with that Spirit. Each one of us have a unique call within us. Each one of us have a unique set of gifts within us to be part of God's work. And we do it together. We do this in teams. All of our ministries here are built so that they can be around teams where people are dreaming together in community and in relationship, so that we can have amazing ideas and ministry that helps us to make an impact in the lives of children in our community. So one of the ways you can do this is take a step and partner with a team in ministry here at our church. Go into your community and look at how God is already active in your community, and how can you work with God, grow with God, to be part of that, to shine light on where God is already at work. And then another one is In our servant leadership pathway here, as we want to help people grow in God's call and how they can partner with God, we're starting a 4-week spiritual gifts class this Wednesday night so that you can discover your spiritual gifts, the unique gifts that God has put within you, and then explore how to grow those and how to connect those to the unique call and community that you are part of with God. We have everything it takes, friends, from simple jugs of water to the smallest of mustard seeds, to move mountains and transform this world one life at a time. I pray that you will join us and be part of that mission with us here at Argyle Methodist. Will you pray with me? Loving God, you have filled us with a life that is full of color and hope and joy. You have called us to be light in dark places, to be justice in times of despair, and to be hope to those who need it the most. Help us to go into our community and see where we can be your people of salt and life. Help us to recognize your dreams for us, and help us to say yes and partner with you. It is in all this we give you great thanks, and we say together, Amen.